Hey guys, so here it is. It probably looks a little different from when we last saw it. Sorry, I got kind of lazy. I'm more of a worker. I don't want to do the video. The video is kind of a pain in the ass for me. So I finished up. I think we ended up with the platen, and all I did was I did end up powder coating the platen and the I guess what this would be like the angle iron that is used for it, and the post with the tracking wheel, and then everything else just has a coat of just spray paint on it, rattle canned it. So let's see what a few things that I ran into. So it kind of sucked. So when I cut this platen, I just followed the plans and cut 1/2-inch holes for the wheel bearings. And then when I started mounting the wheels, I realized that I'm using 5/16 bolts. So I tried to just tighten them down as much as I could, but it's still, both the tension on the belt pushed this wheel down and this wheel up, and so I couldn't keep the belt on. It kept sliding off no matter how high I adjusted the tracking angle. So that kind of sucked. So what we did was we just welded it on to the platen. And so now it's working pretty well. The other thing you might be able to kind of see under here, I crowned this wheel. So I just mounted it up in my bench grinder that normally has a wheel on it. I took the wheel off, put this skateboard wheel on, without the bearings, and clamped it down, and then used a chisel and just crowned both sides of this. So now I really can. It actually works really well. It was running before with just the flat wheel, but this definitely added to the belt grinder's stability. So it's actually that would be a must-have. I mean, I do want to switch these out for aluminum wheels at some point, but we'll get there when we get there. It's working just fine right now. So the other thing is how I'm driving it. It's on my treadmill motor. This is the normal flywheel weight that's on it. And then I just took a piece of it's just some pipe that I got at the welding, the steel supply yard. I migged it on, and then it took probably a good hour's worth with just my angle grinder. And I essentially just used it as almost like a lathe. I just slowly went over it, took off the high points, took off the high points, took off the high points, just for about an hour, got this level as I could, and then beveled this as evenly as I could. So it's actually looking pretty good. It still has a little bit of a wobble. You'll see when we turn it on. It wobbles enough to sort of kind of start moving around on you, but it's really not that bad. So then the other problem I was having was I was trying to use this Harbor Freight controller into a DC bridge rectifier, and I think I said this in another video. The problem that you have is that these don't go down in voltage enough. So even at its minimum, and it's designed to work with a router, and a router never has to go very low at all in speed. But for this, it was, even on its lowest speed, it was just ripping. The belt was just going way too fast. And then that subsequently put a lot of load on the bridge rectifier, and I burned a few of them out. And the other problem was I was burning through a bunch of fuses until I put a slow blow fuse in there, and then it worked all right. It's just it still was going way too fast. So I ordered what this is called, just an SCR. It's got a thyristor in it that sort of chops the AC waveform based on where this potentiometer is turned to. And then, so it's basically exactly the same thing, because this does also have an SCR in it, or a thyristor. This is the same thing, but it lets you control from 0 volts, and this is rated up to 220 volts. Obviously, we're only using 120 out of the normal wall socket. So it goes up to 120, but it gives you the option of finding where you want your voltage at, even below what this was going to. And so it's going to the same bridge rectifier. It still gets a little warm, and so I bought a piece of aluminum stock that I'm going to cut and just mount this to. I'll tap it and then put a bolt down the middle of it, and just to give it a lot of thermal mass. And it's running into this choke that's just sort of going to help. If a capacitor is like a storage container for voltage, a choke is like a storage container for current. And so instead of getting huge inrush spikes of current and when you turn it off another big spike, this sort of evens that out, makes it easier on the motor. Other than that, we just gave it a nice coat of paint. So enough talking, let's turn it on and show you what's going on. So it's just running into my extension cord. You'll turn this up until it kicks on. So that right there is still plenty good enough to do some grinding. Like you can kind of see this is pretty square. So this is tool steel, so that's pretty tough, and it is eating through that on its low setting. When I use it, I'm planning to just put it on the table and clamp it down so that it doesn't rattle around. So that was on its lowest setting with its lowest torque. I could definitely crank it up and get a lot more torque out of it, and then it would just be eating right through whatever I'm grinding on it with. So I don't know, I think it's this is probably like the funnest project I've ever put together. What I do want to add just in the future is I want to get a table to come out here. And I noticed that I'm actually going to have to take this bolt off, either turn it around. I still don't know if that would even clear. So I'm not sure how the guys are adding these tables with this bolt that comes out right where the stock needs to come out. Maybe, yeah, I don't know. Maybe you have to put that in there first. I don't know how they're doing that. I'll have to look at the plans. But this has been super awesome. I got another spring, because the spring isn't very, doesn't have a whole lot of, it takes way too much pressure. So I think I'm going to replace it with this gas piston. I guess it's like a 30-pound gas piston. So, and it comes with the little ball mounts. So I think eventually I'll replace that. And then, you know, eventually when I see, this is already just kind of hot from, it's not, I mean, it's warm, but it definitely, if I was really grinding on it or even sped it up a lot more, I'd be getting pretty hot. So that's another thing I do, that's like a must-have, I'm thinking. Other than that, yeah, this was definitely a super fun build. I'm in love with this thing now. It's been so nice, because if you'll remember when I was trying to figure out a way to mount this wheel, I was trying to drill into some stainless stock, and I ruined a bunch of drill bits. And it's so nice to get Come on. Because it just, even on this tool steel, it sharpens your bit right up. I don't know if we'll be able to get close enough, but you can see it's shiny. This was completely dull. All it just takes is just one little lick on there, and it sharpens it right up. So, if you have any questions, I'm more than willing to walk you through. I might even be making another one just for shits and giggles, and then sell it on KSL, or sell this one on KSL and make another one. I guess just on a final note, I think I probably spent, let's see, well, let's go over what we spent. So we spent like $100 buying the metal stock. So as you can see, about 10 feet of each, and I still probably have, shit, you know, 7-8 feet of each left. So I can probably make at least 2 or 3 more with that much. If I had cutoffs, you know, you only need probably 3 feet of the big tube and then 1.5 feet of the smaller tube, because it just uses this. One for the table if you want, and then this right here. I got the treadmill for free, so the motor was free. And then the wheels, I think these were pretty cheap wheels. I think it was like probably $20 for the set of 4. It even came with the bearings. It might have been like 25. The SDR that will go down to 0 is was $18. $3 for a bridge rectifier. This was on the treadmill, so I didn't have to buy it. And then just miscellaneous bolts. I probably spent, you know, bolts are pretty cheap, probably like $5 in bolts. And then this base plate, I paid just scrap price for it because it was in the scrap bin. That might have been another, it was probably 5 pounds, 50 cents, so $2 for that. So I definitely could have put this together for, if I had just bought just enough steel, I probably could have put this together for, no shit, like well under 100. I'm gonna bet like $60. So, yeah, definitely like probably the funnest project I have, because you can do all sorts of engineering on it. You can make it as complicated as you want. You get to do a lot of welding, a lot of drilling, a lot of tapping. Such a fun project. So if you have any questions, put them in the comments. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next video.